Site contamination exists in most urbanised areas of the world. This is because of historical and some current industrial and commercial practices. Many of the chemicals used either leaked or were poured onto the ground. This contamination can then spread down through the soil to groundwater. Once in groundwater, the chemicals can be transported over large distances due to the natural movement of the groundwater. Like most other places, the chemicals found in contaminated groundwater in South Australia include petrol, diesel and industrial solvents like trichloroethane, also known as TCE, and dry cleaning solvents. Sometimes chemicals in groundwater can become a vapour, which makes its way through the soil and cracks in foundations and floorboards and can then enter the air inside homes. In South Australia, the EPA regulates site contamination. This is to protect our current and future generations from long-term environmental and health impacts. The EPA regulates people who have liability for site contamination. The person who caused the contamination is responsible or liable for assessment and remediation. Sometimes the current site owners are liable for managing or remediating contaminated land. If there is no person liable for the contamination and there is a potential human health risk, then this may become an orphan site. When there is no liable person, the EPA has developed a program for orphan sites. This means that the EPA manages the testing and assessment of sites where contamination has been identified, but the potential human health risk is unknown. The EPA does this by engaging independent site contamination consultants to do this work. But before this testing occurs, the EPA talks to the community that may be impacted. The EPA will either meet community members face-to-face, hold community drop-in sessions, provide letters, post information on the EPA website, as well as have a dedicated phone number for people to call. The EPA's site contamination team manages the logistics and testing program for the environmental assessments. There are a few assessments that need to happen to determine if there is contamination in soil, groundwater or soil vapour. This includes groundwater well installations, groundwater sampling, soil vapour bore installation, geotechnical and soil sampling, and indoor air testing. If indoor air testing shows high levels of contamination, then the EPA determines how to manage that risk. This may include installation of a ventilation system in the affected property. EPA Environmental Assessment Area reports are published on the EPA's website. The Indoor Air Level Response Range for soil vapour for TCE provides the intervention guide for mitigation. The EPA project manages the installation of this mitigation system. The South Australian EPA has successfully installed mitigation systems that meet the needs of each individual property. Testing has shown that this mitigation system is effective and removes TCE and other volatile chemicals from the impacted property. To protect against any possible exposure to contaminated groundwater, the EPA advises not to use contaminated bore water for any purpose. If you would like to have your bore tested, you can contact the Australian Water Quality Centre on 1300 65 3366. For more information on bore water, visit the EPA website.